Hey guys, how's it going? Another tier list here. I haven't had one up in a little bit since I was not able to try out the new heroes, Padme or Cad for a while. I ended up getting them, so I got a chance to try them out. I figured I can put them in here with relatively good ideas of how they play. First up, I'm just gonna go over a few things real quick. Just in case somebody's new checking this out. What I value a lot is the ability to make up energy. And that's a lot of how these guys are ranked. It's just their ability to either deal with the meta or just make up a lot of energy where you don't spend a lot but you can take out and deal damage to them. And basically get an energy surplus compared to them. Right now, I think the meta is basically, especially for Empire, it's about ATSD push, protecting ATSD. So a lot of those guys are higher up that are good at that. MTV is still good, you just don't see it as much. MTV is just, it's one of those things, if the other guy can't handle it, then it's a pretty easy win. And it's really hard to punish it unless you know what you're doing. Rebels, there's two kind of metas right now. There's either the sit back and don't really do anything until your opponent makes a mistake meta, or the super aggro meta, where super aggro is kind of a lot more fun to play, but it's also a lot harder to pull off and a lot harder to do it well. Where you can overwhelm some people, good players are usually pretty good defending it. Well, there's other decks where you kind of just sit back and don't have to worry about it anything unless you kind of screw up. But first of all, we're gonna start off with Rebels. Again, I will post a link to this document in the below, so if you guys want to check it out, you can come check it out. I try and change it as often as possible when new stuff comes out, but oftentimes I like to try out new stuff just to make sure I know what I'm talking about. So sometimes it's a bit delayed because there might even be new stuff this week that I'd be late on. But here we go. First up, we got Jin. Best here, Rebel here right now definitely is Jin. The deck where she can just sit back and not do anything and just snipe towers and put, basically like Rocket. It's not, this isn't a deck, but it's basically like these two cards. Turret, so you block ATSD, and then Rocket, just deal damage to turrets. PAL, super strong against any organic stuff. Does tons of damage. And then you have, you basically have Jin, who can just snipe out a hero. She lacks a little AoE, but like you could just throw these two guys in here and you just wipe out any push. Basically, you never have to cross half with Jin. With her passive, the Demolition does tons of damage. Her Snipe, you can basically just take out turrets and just defend. That's all you gotta do is defend and you're fine. And if they do make the mistake of diving and then dying, you can just... Jin has such high melee attack damage that you can just wipe out turrets super easy as well, that way. Next up. This one's a little tricky, but Padme, I think it's number 2 for Rebels. I was going back and forth between her and Hera, but Padme is just so strong. She's got a sick unique. All her organic units get an extra 12% damage. Which is not 2 levels, but it's pretty close. And you also get Handmaiden. Has 75% health and attack power. 15 seconds. So, it's 75%, but then you actually get the extra 12%. Which is insane. It's on a super low cooldown. It's basically up less than... you can have your thing out for more than half the time. Because it's up for 15 seconds, cooldown's only 26. So you basically have 2 of them running around half the time. Plus, her unique is super good. It's 2 energy, decent health, decent damage. It also has like a Thrawn and Lando AoE attack to him too. So he has a little bit of AoE. And he also gets 12% extra attack power from her Padme's passive as well. Which also increases because of the set for all your squad units get more attack power. So she's not even really seeing her full potential right now, because if you get like 8 of the units, 8% plus her 12%, so much extra damage. The thing with Padme is she's basically like a Thrawn, in a way, where you basically put a whole bunch of cheap units, high damage with her passive, and since Empire doesn't have as good as AoE as Rebels, it's really hard to just clear out efficiently. Even if you clear out all her troops, you still have her clone and this guy just running around, like 3 guys with a whole bunch of damage just blasting away at things, which is just insane. Like, she just does so much damage. If you kill the enemy at all, you just take a tower. It's super easy. It's insane. Depending, like, if there's more Republic stuff coming out too, she could be really good. Because, like, with these guys and these guys coming up in levels, people are going to start using her more, and she's going to be really crazy good. But that's basically it. Like, she just does so much damage, she just shoots right to the top. Especially against ATST meta, it's really hard to protect against, like, if you have Rebel Troopers. But they have 84 attack power plus 12%. It's like an extra 8 damage on each of them. Attack speed. So it's like an extra 4 DPS per second. Which is insane. And that's on Rebel Troopers. Like, imagine Pathfinders and extra 13 damage basically. Everything just does so much damage with her, and if you get caught out of position, you just die. That's it, and you just take tower. So, one thing keeping her down is it's hard to get the set up high with like good units. But once people do that, and once new units come out, she's gonna be a beast. It's gonna be insane. Alright, next up we got Hera. Everybody knows Hera. Chopper's really good against mech. Tech, sorry. ATSD, MTV. No fun. Big AoE. Takes down everything. Plus a little bit of extra energy whenever you play Chopper. Who you're probably playing as soon as you get him usually. Because you're trying to match him up with the ATSD or MTV all the time. Not to mention all the new tech units that Empire has. So, Hera's number 3. Good AoE, good energy, good CC. Just really strong. Finally, rounding out the high tier for Rebels coming in 4th is Yoda. I know there's been a lot of talk about how he's OP. I don't think he's that strong. I think he just fits the meta real well, and people don't really know how to play against him. Everybody's like, yeah, he gets an extra quarter health. He really doesn't. Thing is, like, Yoda's best when he's tanking towers. Because you want to dodge big attacks. Like, if you're just dodging an attack from a little guy and then you take a whole bunch of big damage, his passive basically useless. So you want to be taking as many high volume shots as possible. High damage. He still has the lowest amount of health for melee heroes, so it's a little tough, but... and Mace is just strong, too. Basically, you can't clump up in one lane against him, which a lot of Empires do right now, and you just wreck him. So, against Yoda, the big knack against him is if you split push and keep pressure on him, he won't be able to play a good Mace, and he also won't be able to cover all that. Like, both lanes pushing. So, he's not as good as the other guys, because you kind of have to go ham with him, take some big shots, and if you're not lucky, you just get ran over. Also, the meta, like, a lot of guys are worried about Anakin on Empire. So, there's a lot of Scout Troopers, there's a lot of nerve gas, there's a lot of stuns type stuff going around, like bombers. So, all that stuff affects Yoda as well. So, I think he's really good. I just don't think he's better than the top 3 right now. He's close, but I don't think you'll ever be able to pass him with just the way you have to play Yoda for him to be good. Alright, now to the A tier heroes. These guys are all really good. You can probably play them and do really well. It's just they're not as efficient as the other guys. So we'll start with Luke. He still has really good deflectors. You can still catch people off guard because everybody's using Dewback still with Kenobi. Still got decent health, decent damage. The more tech units are kind of a little problem for Luke, but being able to deflect a lot helps. And unless you're against certain heroes, like his ability to block stuff is never gonna be bad. Still do like turrets, still do units. MTV is kind of useless against them if you're good with positioning. So he's really good. Just like doesn't have too much AOE. You can kind of get screwed over with Ben in your hand, but Ben can be super game changing if you're good with him. Next up, we got Han. A lot of people are playing Motor Han. There's Adrenal Han going around. I think just with his mind, he can play defense very well, and he can also push whenever he wants. His crit is pretty strong still. You can do... Just like, if you get a good couple crits, you just wipe out people. Chewie's still pretty good. He's not as good in this meta. Like, you want to use it against divers, but... certain decks, like if you're going to run Adrenal, may as well run Chewie. He does so much damage. But, like... Han's mind is just so good at wiping out everything. So he's always going to probably be top tier unless they really nuke that. Next up, we got 40 Luke. 40 Luke is really good. He's got nice CC ability. He does a lot of damage to ATSTs, MTVs, that kind of stuff. Biggest problem with 40 Luke right now is he's still got low health. And everybody and their mom's running Nerf gas and Scout Troopers. So, one of the big things with 40 Luke is you gotta use his mobility, and that severely it basically destroys all his mobility if you get caught up with it. So, doesn't really have unique, so that kind of knock against him, and it's hard to level him up. So while he's really good, he just kind of, in this meta, it kind of keeps him in this tier. Maybe if things shift away from that, he might be a little bit better. But for now, he's with the other Luke, A tier. Next up, we got Bodhi. Still really strong. Makes all this, like, it's really hard to defeat a good one. It's a little bit harder for him to win games because G&K got nerfed a while ago, so you can't really use that as a push. It still gets, like, tons of energy, tons of heal. So, well, he's not as good as he used to be. You still should never lose games with him. It's just a lot harder to win games. That's why he's down here. And then finally, I know people are going to argue against this. I lowered Anakin. It's basically, if you're not paying attention, Ahsoka can wipe you out. She's good against ATSTs, but he's not that strong. Like, he's got slow attack speed in the first place. And then everybody's running Nerve Gas and Scout Troopers. So it severely limits his ability to do anything. So while I think he's pretty good, he's not as OP as everybody says. Ahsoka has little health, so as long as you're paying attention, she's going to be tough to get onto a turret for more than like a couple shots without being dealt with. I think the biggest thing with Anakin was there wasn't ever a Rebel leader like him. So, he's got decent health, he's got a punishing consecutive attack, but, like, Empire players just weren't ready to play against Anakin. And then, so everybody's coming in with, like, 5 or level 6 Anaki's, and they're just stopping stuff, just because people weren't ready. So now there's a lot of Scout Troopers running around, a lot of Nerf gas, and it's kind of making them useless. So he's with the A tiers, and that's going to be the last of them. Because he's still pretty good, he's just not as good as the other guys. up top, like Jin, Padme, Hera, and Yoda. Next up, B. These guys are fun to play. We'll start with Ezra. They just have weaknesses to them. Big problem with Ezra, I think, is his stupid gun attack. It's basically like hammer, nothing, and then every once in a while you jump back and you shoot, and then it can screw you up. Kanan's really good. Kanan basically carries him. You can still block a whole bunch of tower shots, deal a lot of damage with him. One of the big things with Ezra too is you gotta go low health for his passive to actually work. His skill is super hard to use, so he doesn't have a lot of AoE. And if you're going against like somebody with melee stuff, Kanan gets wrecked. So he's decent. He's just not that great. You kind of have to do certain things with him. You kind of just have to play super aggro, and there's no real way to play a defensive Ezra, so kind of knock against him. Next up, we got Baze. I think Baze is really underrated at the moment, but the biggest problem with Baze is when you have Shrewd at level 4, he's got an AoE ability. It's tough to deal with ATSD sometimes. So, with all the ATSDs running around, it can be tough to play Baze just because you basically have to auto-tag yourself with Shrewd up. And that's 4 energy you kind of like have to deal with ATSDs, and it can be a little constrictive. Otherwise, if ATSD ever gets a nerf or it's less used, Baze will probably pop up a lot more, as he can wipe out everything else that Empire can do. And finally, rest of B tier, Leia. Like, a lot of people complain about Leia, and Leia does one thing, and she does one thing only. She runs up to your turret, and she drops Rebel Troopers. Well, that can work a lot of the times. Like, if anybody has Bomber, you're screwed. So right now, she's kind of in B, just because a lot of people can't defend against her well. To be honest, I've thought about lowering this week, but she does not do well in the meta. With all the skill, like, with slow abilities, like, it's so hard to get to a turret now with Leia in the first place, let alone if you do get to the turret, you just drop a bomber on her and she's wrecked. So, I don't think she'll stay up to here this much longer, but that's how it goes. Next up, we'll go to C. These guys have issues. If you're good with them, they can be good, but otherwise, they're tough to play sometimes. It's basically Lando. Problem with Lando is too random. He's got a decent unique, which helps out with the randomness, so you play that, and then you can cycle, and then you probably get the cards that you want, but still, you never know if you're going to get an extra 1 or 2 energy, which can be huge if you're trying to do like double tank, double bantha. And you also never know what you're going to get. Like if you want to do double bantha but you end up don't get the bantha, then you're kind of screwed. So the problem with him is he's just too random. The RNG, you need it to be strong to be able to play him, and if you don't have the RNG, then you're kind of out of luck. So that's why he's down here. If they ever fix it so it's a little less random, he'll probably shoot up a lot, but right now, you never really know. Next up, the last guy is D-Pool. These guys are really tough to play. If you're good with them, you're still going to be okay, but they're definitely the weakest of the bunch. First up, we have Sabine. Problem with her, she's just too squishy. They buffed Fenn, where I think he's actually in a good spot for level 3. He maybe could use a little extra damage, but he's fairly, well, I don't know. Here's the thing. This is the same health as Padme's guy. I think 82-4. 824. Yeah, and 803. So he's a little, it could use a little buff to the health, actually. For 3 energy. But he's got a nice rocket attack. He kind of goes to where the battle is, which is nice. Problem with being, she hasn't got any more explosive units, which hasn't helped her. And her, like, slash. What happened was, I think her range got nerfed. So when she slashes it and jumps back, she jumps out of ranged attack. Basic range. So, her consecutive attacks kind of just screw over as well. But basically when she dashes in, she's in, like, super easy to kill. A lot in harm's way, and you can just wipe her out. And she doesn't do enough damage to offset that, unfortunately. And then finally, we have one guy who's dropped a hell of a lot. And that's Cassian. He gets wrecked by nerve gas as well, which is one of the reasons he drops a lot, but he just doesn't do enough damage now, especially to deal with ATSTs. People have easy ways of taking out his Pathfinders now, especially when you can damage him as well as damage Pathfinders. His range isn't as good. His passive, giving one range to everything, doesn't work as well, since most of the time they're moving up anyways. So, he just doesn't do enough damage. He's too squishy. K2's not as good anymore. He's just not very good in the meta. So basically he's at the bottom of the barrel right now. Just a quick note, I do have tier lists for uniques. I don't usually go over them, because it's more tied to the hero, but Typho is basically tier A. Spelled his name wrong in the thing, but that's how it goes. I don't know if he's top unique, but he's one of them. I still think it's probably Chopper. I think Mace, Kanan, pretty good, and then probably him. Alright, on to the Empire. First up, we got the King, we got Boba. Slave 1's just too good. Boba's got tons of AoE, does tons of damage to heroes. Super good at protecting ATST. So, he's #1 with a bang for Empire. Like, easy choice. Call it a day, go home. Next up, we have Callus. Basically the same thing, except without the Slave 1. Basically, he's the Slave 1, he does CC. Tons of AoE damage, tons of damage. Yogur's kind of holding him back. I was thinking about switching him with the next guy, but I think he's still pretty good. He still does tons of AoE, which is needed. It's nice and needed against Rebels. Especially against like Anakin decks, where you just want to wipe out the wave and then deal with Annie. Having Yogurt not be useful is kind of a problem for him, but he makes up for it with his abilities, so it's not too bad for him. And yeah, basically it. Next up, we got Maul. I was thinking about making him 2, but I think he has a lack of AoE, which can hurt him. Like, if you're really good with Probe Droid, it's not too bad, but it can be tough to get a good Probe Droid out. He's just really good against the meta. He can stun Annie when he's using his thing, because it's not technically a stun. His extra life is really good. His set bonus, like, more energy is sick. It can be a little tough to get, but a lot of people are just using these guys because they're cheap. And even if they get wiped out, it's not a big deal. You just cycle through them. But he's super good in the meta right now. He's super good at protecting the ATST. These things are boss wherever you put them. If nothing else, they take 1 or 2 shots before they just deal a little bit of damage. For 2 energy, insane. His passive is nice. You just get back up, jump around. And again, he's got a nice CC with little AoE attached. Does tons of damage. It's even good against turrets. Just do so much damage to turrets. So he's #3 for Empire. Who knocked down Bosk. Well, Bosk isn't that bad. It's just Maul's a little bit better in the meta. Bosk is still really good. Get tons of energy with him, especially with a lot of the aggro guys running around. Got CC for all those Banthas and, again, aggro heroes. One of the big things holding back his IG is pretty useless. Doesn't do enough AoE damage to actually be useful. He's got, like, no health. So you probably don't even want to run IG. But again, I think he does... What's his consecutive attack? Yeah, it does AoE. So he's got a little AoE, he's got nice energy, and he's got nice CC. So he's definitely top tier. And then finally we go to the A tier now. These guys are pretty good, just not as good. As the top guys, first of all, you got Vader. Still a beast, even with all the Anakins running around. Afra's still really good. Having a nice stun, just for even units, is nice. He's got tons of health. Has a decent AoE attack, especially with this pull. The only thing holding him down, I think, is his low mobility. But that's not even too bad, because you have a lot of dashes up now. So he's pretty good. Just could use a little bit more AoE and a little bit more speed. Be super good. Next up, we have Thrawn. This one I keep going back and forth on. If he's A tier or B tier. Biggest problem with him is Boomerang Guy, Grenadier, Ion Mine. Like, there's just so much good AoE for Rebels that it can be hard to get a good push with him. Price, I was never a big fan of. She works. It's nice if you can keep her alive for like half the game or more, which most good Thrawn players can do, just because you're keeping your passive up. Biggest thing with Thrawn is like Scout Troopers are really good with them, so that helps out with the meta a lot. And if you can kill the other guy's hero, you can just push a turret. It's super easy. Biggest problem is if you can't kill the hero, Thrawn has a tough time pushing against some heroes. Because pushing into a turret isn't as easy with Thrawn. Especially if they have like some sort of stun or something like that. But he's definitely really good. And he can definitely like destroy a lot in skilled hands. Next up is Krennic. Krennic is tons of energy and his ability is always up. So he does massive single target DPS. So if you fill your deck with a bunch of AoE cards, they're golden. DSL isn't that good. It costs too much. I'd rather just use Death Squad if you're going to just use Death Squad Leader. Which is one of the reasons holding him back. He needs AoE and he needs a decent unique and he'd be okay. He gets a little bit wrecked with like all the new heroes, but I think Krennic's still super good. You can just wipe out so much stuff with his skill, and then with the set bonus having it reduced by 15% and just shooting stuff, it's basically always up. Next up, this guy fell for Maul. Since Maul does crazy shit, and he's basically a weaker Cal, so 40 Vader, so he's still really good. He's just not as good as he used to be, and he's not as good as other heroes that do basically the same thing as him. I think one of the biggest things is his passive is useless against like the top heroes and Rebels right now. So you're not gonna kill Jin, you're not gonna kill Hera, and you might not even be able to kill the Padme. So it's good against like Anakins and stuff like that, but being good against half the meta isn't that great. Especially when like Maul and Callus are good against the entire stuff. So that's why he falls down. He's still really good, he's just not as good as these guys. Down in the B tier, these guys have weaknesses that are a little bit more glaring than the other guys. While they're not outright bad, they're still not as good. Seventh Sister, biggest problem with her is AoE Rexer droids, and she's super squishy. Fifth Brother is actually really good right now, I think. I think he's super underrated. Just because all the Anakins and Yodas and all those guys running around. Just being able to get stuff off your turret is really strong. Especially with a suicide hero like Seventh Sister, where you're kind of going in a lot and risking you dying. So if you end up dying, you can always just come back with a brother, and then you kind of save your turret. But like Boomerang, Partisan just destroys her day. It just gets rid of her droids super easily. Iron Man can do it, but it's just super hard to get onto a turret with her droids that aren't just going to get ripped apart by some sort of AoE. Which is why she's down here. And then next up we have Tarkin. I think he's in a weird spot. Because support cards all are being used a lot. So that makes him a little bit better, but he still just doesn't have quite enough power behind him to do it. Like, I still think the Swarm deck with him is really good. He has a problem with tanks. like rebel tanks, but I don't think a lot of people are using them. So I was thinking about moving him up, but for right now I think I'm gonna keep him where he is, just because he can have a tough time with a whole bunch of aggro in your face. If you can get him down, he's kind of screwed, but he's still pretty good, especially with support cards like Nerve Gas and TIE Bomber being really good. So he's very flexible, and he can pick up wins using different different decks like ATST or just Swarm. He's just a little weak right now, otherwise he'd be really good. Next up, we got Emperor. Thing is with Emperor is he's all damage, and he does that well. So if you can sit behind like a tank or something, like stick behind a dewback, stick behind where's the droid? This guy, and you just like shit damage. Basically, and you got double bladesman for even more damage fun. His skill just like poops on people. Especially when you kill somebody. Gets so much damage. Biggest problem with him is he's super squishy. Like level 3, he has 1,000. He's just so, if people can get on him or protect against his pushes, he's kind of useless. So it's tough against like Jin and Hera's, because when their ability goes off, he takes a lot of damage. So it's really hard to push in on Emperor, but it's super easy to defend. And he does tons of AoE damage. So if they give him a little bit more health, he's going to shoot right up the ranks, and he'll be really good. Next up is Cad. New guy. I had a rough time trying to place him. Biggest thing is, he's really good at wiping out Swarm. He's got tons of AoE. He's got a nice little bola that can snare people, but it doesn't really work on big units like Bantha and stuff, so it's good for heroes. Biggest problem with him, I find, is he's super clunky. Like, trying to switch between stuff and just, I don't know. It's really tough to say why it doesn't work. But if you play him, it's tough between switching stuff, trying to keep up what you need at the right time, getting the abilities that you need at the right time. It can be really tough to play him. And a lot of times I find the biggest thing with Cade is you're just trying to you're just trying to die in a good spot, which is not something you want to be doing with a hero. Like, I think him dying is actually pretty insane. It was like 200% damage, so if you're trying to suicide on a turret, it's really good. If you're trying to protect your turret, it's pretty good, but having one of your best abilities is when you're dying is not a good thing in 1v1, so he's a little rough. His unique is basically a sniper that follows you around. Oh, where's your health? 280. The biggest problem is you're going to have to get her higher up, otherwise her health is just going to be an issue. Because she has a problem, because it's Cad, you're not standing around, which unfortunately for her, like, she follows you the entire time. So unless you're standing around, she's not going to do very much damage. And you're running around, you're trying to get grenades off, you're trying to use your abilities. So she's kind of following you, and she doesn't actually do anything. So the AI on her is a little weird, and it affects her really badly. So I just don't think Cade's in a good spot for single target right now. And he's just a little clunky overall, so he's not very high up. Next up, we got the C tier. Like I said, C tier, if you're good with them, you can do a lot of work, but they're tough to pull off very well. Dinga is at first my favorite, but still, he's all DPS. That's all he is. So if you can't kill the hero, you're kind of screwed. He's good at clearing waves. His passive can do work with the meta right now. Like, if you let Anakin take one of your towers while you're working simultaneously on both towers, you can usually do it pretty well, pull off a good wing, because you just wipe out everything, since you get an extra 20% damage, which is pretty big. especially with his consecutive attacks. So you do monster damage with him. But that being said, like with Jin and Hera and Padme all running around, it's tough to kill those guys effectively and then have a good strong push back. So unless you get a lucky 4-lum, especially with the 4-lum nerfs, like the range on his zap is terrible. It's so tough to get it off now, which is kind of a bummer, but that's how it goes. So yeah, he's just all DPS. He's got no CC, he's got no utility, so that's why he's down here. He's just, and he doesn't have as good as DPS as Emperor. So, down here he goes. And it's basically the same thing with GI, who's also down here with him as everything loads up. Fifth Brother is good if you can actually get him on something without having the boomerang. Well, in tower range. GI, good. He's got decent AoE. The spin, if you're really good with it. And then, if you can kill a hero, it's great. But like I said, half the guys, it's super hard to kill. But yeah, he's all DPS like Dengar. And not enough DPS to be in Emperor's zone. And then finally, unfortunately, I really like this guy. We have Grievous. Way down on the D tier. Biggest problem with Grievous is it's hard to get in the backline with him. All the new units are pretty low. Like, you want to be using these guys, Battle Droids, you want to use Magma Guard. They're hard to level up. And you just get wrecked by Boomerang. Even with Bomber, you basically have to Bomber and then use your special ability to take out a Boomerang guy. And that's an insane value. His tech, like, this is just not enough. This needs to be like 8%, 10%, how it was in beta. Because these guys can't actually get to anything in the back line. They're great at taking out stuff from the front line, but they get wrecked by Boomerang. Basically, anything in a Grievous deck is going to get wrecked by Boomerang, and it's super hard to kill him. So, until they fix that, he's going to be down here. Unfortunately, I really love Grievous. He's such a fun hero to play. But his tech units just don't do enough for how weak he is right now. So I think they just need to buff up his tech units. Be able to take out Boomerang guy and you'll be fine. And like I did with Typho Aurora, I talked about her a little bit. I think you should probably always use her. Just because the amount of damage she can put out is insane, and she follows you around. So even if you just play at the start of the game, just have them follow you around, you're not wasting that free energy at the start. So I don't think she's bad enough that you don't use them. Don't use her, but not good enough that she's actually good. There's nothing much else changed with the uniques, so. Finally, I'm gonna go to my fail 5. First up, Jin. Basically, you basically don't have to do anything and you win the game. You just snipe turrets, defend, you're good to go. Boba, you're just so strong with ATSD. You just clear away anything with his AoE, clear away heroes with his passive. Rocket's really good, Slave One's a beast. Number 3, Padme. She just shits damage. Like, everybody else in this game wish they did as much damage as Padme. Emperor's like, why does Padme do so much damage on the Emperor? There's just nobody that can match her with damage that she does. Next up we have Hera. Really good against ATST. Chopper's really good. And her skill, well, it seems like it's on a long cooldown. With Chopper, is up most of the time that you don't have to worry about it. It's super good. And finally we got Callus. Just his AoE and his CC is just too strong, and he just has a lot of health, and he just face tank a whole bunch of stuff and protect that ATST very well. I'll just do a quick thing because I'm not going to do a draft video. Padme, A tier, just because you're not always going to get organic units. Most of the time you are, but it's a little weird with her. Just because you need... If you can get certain units, she's really good, otherwise not. And then Cad's there too, just because he's got sweet AoE. And Sniper's always pretty good in draft. Alright, guys. This ran a little bit longer than I wanted to. That's how it goes sometimes. If you got any comments, leave them down below. I'll try and check them out, taking into consideration for the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you later.